Hello everyone. Today we're going to continue our discussion of assessment practices for teachers with this question that appeared on a standardized assessment here in the United States of America. Students were given this question right here as well as this picture clue, and were asked, where is this man going? And they were supposed to infer, based on the clues here, where this man is most likely going. Now what happened was when the scores were released for this particular item, it was found that a disproportionate number of white students got it correct when compared to students of color. A closer look revealed that students of color plausibly inferred that this individual was going either to church or to the bank to get a loan. But what was considered the correct answer, the only correct answer, was this man is going to work. And so here we have an introduction to a problem that many of us face as we design assessments. How can we ensure that our assessments are reliable, valid, and free of bias? You see, in this case, the individuals who designed the test erroneously interpreted the correct answer through their own world lens, their own purview. So we need to do our very best to make sure that we design for students is reliable, valid, and free of bias as often as we can. So our learning goals are going to be these. We want to be able to design assessments that match learning objectives and that seek to minimize sources of bias that can distort our assessment results. We also want to understand the range and types of multiple purposes of assessment, how to design, adapt, and select appropriate assessments to address specific learning goals, as well as individual difference, as well as to minimize sources of bias. So we've got quite a bit to do. Let's start off with this. We're going to start off with assessment reliability. Now, when we talk about assessment reliability, we want to ask ourselves this question. Does this assessment measure with consistency? Because reliability refers to the extent to which our assessments tend to be consistent. We want to have reliable, consistent instruments in order to measure what our students are working so hard towards. So another way to think of reliability is to imagine a kitchen scale. If you weigh 5 pounds of potatoes in the morning and the scale is reliable, that same scale should register 5 pounds for the potatoes an hour later. So likewise, the instruments that we use in the classroom, such as classroom tests, standardized exams, these should be reliable. And it should not make any difference whether a student is taking the assessment in the morning, the afternoon, or the next day. So how do we achieve this? Well, one teacher tip for increasing the reliability of our assessments is to do everything we can to reduce measurement error. We do this by writing the items clearly, making the instructions easily understood, and always working to adhere to proper test administration and consistent scoring. So if there is consistency in the way that we go about the assessment, as well as clarity in the items that we put in front of kids, chances are our assessment will be more reliable. In addition, we need to make sure that we have consistency within each student. Not that they always do the same, but they consistently try to show what they know. One of the real challenges is to get kids to try their best in order for us to be able to actually be measuring their best capacity, their best effort rather than a half-hearted attempt. So we need to work hard to encourage students to perform their best on assessments and always do our best to match the assessment difficulty to our students' ability levels. In addition, whatever criteria we're using to score an assessment piece or an evidence piece, we need to make sure that it's well understood by students before they even start the assignment. Another teacher tip for increasing reliability is to keep this in mind. Because an assessment is actually a sample of whatever desired knowledge or skills that we want students to attain, a rule of thumb is that the longer an assessment is, the more reliable it tends to be to a certain extent. So typically the more questions or opportunities we give to kiddos to demonstrate their knowledge or skills, the better. So you wouldn't want somebody to show up and ask you, or assess your intelligence with just a single question. You'd want to have a number of questions. So in case you got 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever it is wrong, over time it would accurately report what your intelligence actually was. So we might be asking ourselves, how many items do we actually need in order to provide a reliable measurement in our assessment? So that's not really easy to understand, but a rule of thumb for that is include as many questions as you think the students can complete in the assessment time that's available to them. Finally, one last tip for increasing reliability is this. We need to make sure that we're paying more attention to the careful construction of the assessment and the questions themselves. So let's make sure that we're phrasing each question very, very clearly so that students know exactly what it is that we want them to demonstrate an understanding of or the ability to do. We're always trying to write items that discriminate among good and poor understanding, And this is very, very helpful to start planning the test and writing the items well ahead of the time the test is actually going to be administered. Because when we rush through our assessment design, it's unlikely to be a reliable test.